What's up? What's happening? Wednesday edition of the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Super producer Anthony Haney back in our DC studios. Your boy operating from Take Command Central, if you will, the home studio. Today, after my second straight day in Baltimore for joint practices. And I got to say, Anthony, this is by far the least important thing out of all of the things. But I'm so happy that it's just 2 days and that I don't have to do that drive again, possibly ever in my whole life.
Couldn't have been that bad.
How is every part of the journey from downtown D.C. to Owings Mills, Maryland, like exactly 9 miles? It's just 9-mile chunks on this highway and that road and this main throughway, and then all of a sudden you're in Owings Mills and an hour, 20 minutes of your life has gone and you will never, ever, never, ever get it back. That is every time I feel like I drive to the state of Maryland from D.C. It's very bizarre. It is something, where is the direct route to somewhere in Maryland? That's what I would like to know, outside of the actual city of Baltimore itself.
Luckily for me, I did not have to do that, and I wish you, success.
And I know much of our audience is Maryland-based, and for those of you that have to do that in reverse coming back to D.C., I feel your pain. I'm happy that I don't have to do that again. Again, the facility in Owings Mills itself, very, very nice, but alas, I'm happy to be done with the driving portion. Not that Ashburn's exactly a treat, but another successful day, I would say, of practices. Ron Rivera was happy with generally how everything went. Certainly not perfect, but I think what you walk away from these practices saying is these are two well-matched teams, and I don't think a lot of national folks say that. Now, of course, there is one glaring difference, and that is the Ravens quarterback has an MVP trophy, and the Commanders quarterback has one career start. Do either of those things particularly mean anything once they blow the whistle and the season starts in September? No. It's just as we're still in the prediction time of year and the forecasting time of year, obviously quarterback play matters. And if Lamar is, a top 10 quarterback in the league, a top 6 quarterback in the league, whatever top you want to put him, and Sam Howell is even, somewhere between 15 and 20, which is way better than a lot of people would have him, then the Ravens are probably going to win a few more games than the Commanders in what is only a 17-game season. That is enough to make a difference. But when you watch, position group by position group, I don't think the Commanders had anywhere where you're like, man, that's a glaring weakness. Did they struggle at times? Yeah, the Ravens are a good team. But there's also times the Ravens struggled. I mean, the Commanders' defensive line got after Lamar in some periods. Their run defense was really fantastic at certain points. And I think what you also remember as you get into game-type situations is some of these big plays. Like the first play of run today, 11 on 11, I didn't see this live, but I know it was on more of you saw it than I did because I was watching the other field, and this was something that was caught by the Ravens live stream today. John Allen has a monster tackle for loss. Well, now, if that's a real game, and that was actually 1st and 10 from the 25-yard line, that's now 2nd and 14, and like the Ravens are in a bad spot. That's the kind of stuff that changes drives, changes games. And so the Commanders' ability to make the big play defensively, it certainly matters. Same thing on the offensive side where there's a couple plays today where Sam Howell shows his mobility. I know there's one highlight that's going around on Twitter thanks to the Commanders video team of Sam like rolling to his left, throwing sidearm back right, and it's a huge completion to De'Ami Brown, who legitimately may have scored on the play. Probably winds up getting about 30, 40 yards and then gets tackled, but it's still a monster play as Sam finds him late off schedule over the middle on what was a legit play. This wasn't, he had to legitimately run, but it wouldn't have been a sack. He would have escaped, and he finishes the play. So that's all great. There's also times the Commanders got their butts kicked. Like Lamar is Lamar. He had some really great throws again today. Commanders O-line in a couple of the 11 on 11 periods really, really struggled with pressure. And it gets to a point where you stop going, okay, it is what it is. It's the pressure periods. And eventually they have to actually figure out how to pick up the pressure. And that's part O-line and part quarterback. But that's what training camp is for, is figuring that stuff out And when they went back out, the last 11-on-11 period today, the ones went out for 2 different rounds. And on the second round, a lot less pressure, and the Commanders looked really, really good. So nice, solid, mixed bag in terms of results. Ravens win some, Commanders win some. And, of course, there was a couple of melees. No full team, both fields going crazy. These fights, I would say, were more significant and involved more people than yesterday. And Rivera was as angry as I have ever seen him, like, actually ever. And he took charge. And, like, say what you want about Ron, and certainly we all have our nits to pick and our major things to talk about. But Ron, when Ron firmly believes in something, he will stand on it and he will act upon it. And today, the O-line, D-line drills, one-on-one started to get out of hand. One of the Ravens defensive linemen took an extra nasty finish to a play. It was way beyond the whistle, didn't like it, and started throwing punches and things got heated. There was also a couple of just like bad technique, like sloppy stuff that, it's kind of stuff that happens in a game, but like when you're in practice and one-on-one, and Sam Cosmi was on the receiving end of an illegal hands to the face, it was called, but like you don't want to get decked in the chin in practice and have a guy just mash his hand up into under your face mask. Cosmi was heated. And so that group was real hot, and it was starting to be kind of an every snap pushing and shoving extracurriculars. And after one too many of those, Ron left his quarterbacks, left the drill he was supervising. I think he let EB run it, or however it was going. It was operating. I mean, Ron's there to observe and blow the whistle a lot. That's what most head coaches do. But he went over and he's like, fine, I'll watch this one. And he took command of the offensive defensive line drill, and there were no more issues. There was a huge scuffle. And I still don't know exactly what happened with this one. My best guess is that the Ravens were pretty ticked about Antonio Gibson's physical running yesterday. There was the one highlight that was kind of on Twitter of him giving it to a linebacker pretty good, kind of running through a guy. And my guess is that some of the Ravens linebackers specifically said, that we're going to get him today. Like these kinds of things happen. And sure enough, like the one-on-ones, running backs, linebackers, and pass protection got pretty chippy really fast, and Gibson was kind of at the center of some of that. And then one of the first plays of team drill, Gibson's out there, and all of a sudden there are punches being thrown, and helmet goes flying, and Ron called over his entire offensive unit and was like, that is enough. It's not verbatim what he said, because I'm on the radio and I'm not allowed to say verbatim what he said. But it was come here, come right bleeping here. And he's pointing like to the spot, huddle around me. That's enough. We're not here to fight. We're here to get better. We're here to work. And that was the end of that. And that's kind of been his message over both these days. Like, there is something to toughness. There's something to physicality. But there is something to getting better and winning on Sundays in the fall, and that is why you do all of this work. Now, Rivera on the fighting in practice, after practice today.
Well, biggest thing I told him is, you don't have to get a little bit out of control to be successful and have a good work week. Thought they did some really good things today. Really pleased with a lot of the positives, a lot of the pluses. But, we didn't need the fighting, and that was one of my biggest messages. Guys, you got to go out there and play football. You got to perform, do your job, do what you're supposed to. All that other stuff's not important. It doesn't help us win football games. Just wanted to make sure they understand it. I think part of our thing is just understanding how to be a mature football team. And I think that's important. We've shown some good growth, some good maturity, but this was a good test to just understand what it takes to be really good.
I talked earlier in the segment about how a big loss, a tackle for a loss by John Allen, let's say, can change a drive, change a game. So can a 15-yard penalty for doing something dumb. And so, while everyone or a lot of people will just say, oh, it's practice, like they fight in practice, it is what it is, not a big deal. For Rivera, he sees it as a test to, we are playing a physical game, tempers are going to flare, can you stop your behavior short of something that will hurt our team? And that is how he approaches this. I happen to agree with that approach. And I think he clearly got that message across as after the hour mark of the practice today and a couple of fights that had flared up, there were no issues for the second half of practice. Something that he was proud of his football team and obviously complimentary of the Ravens for achieving as they finished up with good work. Get out of there. They are off tomorrow, and then Friday back to practice before a preseason game between these two teams coming up on Monday. Coming up next, you'll hear about what Rivera thought of the O-line today. Also some thoughts from the Ravens side of it. What did they make of practicing against the Commanders? So you'll hear John Harbaugh speak as well. Coming up later on the show, Mitch Tischler joins us, Beltway Football Podcast, get his thoughts on the O-line and more, and we'll get some Baltimore perspective. What did Cordell Woodward, who covers the Ravens for our sister station in Baltimore, 105.7 The Fan, what did he think of Washington coming to town? That is all still to come here on the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, and always live on the free Odyssey app.
After years on the Skins beat, Chris Russell talks.
It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube, youtube.com/@theteam980. Make sure you get your comments in on anything you want on youtube.com/@theteam980 or at Craig Hoffman, and we will respond to the best comments, the most thoughtful, the most interesting. Although, admittedly, I'm a weak human being, and sometimes I just respond to the mean ones on YouTube during our Never Read the Comments section, or our Never Read the Comments segment. That is coming up at 5:30. Training Camp Pick 6 at 6. Coming up, well, at 6. Mitch Tischler at the bottom of the hour. All right, some thoughts from the head coaches today. Rivera talked about, obviously, trying to keep a cool head, fighting. being a mature football team, all that stuff. But then we started talking to Ron after the post-practice presser, or at the post-practice presser, about some of the football as well. And the first thing I was curious is how the O-line held up. And this is something that I cannot wait to talk with Logan about on Take Command, which we're going to record and put out immediately tomorrow morning. So if you're not subscribed to Take Command, you definitely want to do that, because he's got access to all the tape and can watch it back. And it's just so hard to watch so many different things. But Sam was definitely under pressure at times today. Jacoby, I felt like, was under less pressure. Some of that might be some of the quickness that Jacoby has mentally to get the ball out and understand where pressure is coming from. But also, I think the 2-0 line, both in the game the other night against Cleveland and so far in practice, has been pretty good all camp long. The 2-0 line might be a little bit better than most 2D lines. And they also get to practice against a Commanders 2D line that would be a low-end starting caliber defensive line on some teams in the NFL. They've got that much talent behind the first four. So with all that said, how did the offensive line for the Commanders hold up? Here was Rivera after today.
I thought they did hold their own. I really did. That's a good football team that they go up against. They got a tremendous scheme, and I thought our guys handled it. I thought they adjusted really well to some of the things that went on. We got beat a couple times, but a couple times we did some really good things that we could really hang our hat on. A lot of improvement. Very pleased with the play of the quarterback. So I thought Sam did a great job. This is one of the things that we talked about, how important that these 2 days would be in our evaluation process. And there's a lot of questions we wanted answered. And, yesterday's tape I was really pleased with, for not just the quarterbacks, for him specifically as well. He did some really good things, threw some real good balls. His ball placement, his accuracy was what we needed. Decision-making was very plus. So again, I'm looking forward to watching the tape and, with Eric and Tavita, and really get a chance to evaluate him again after yesterday's practice.
So I asked Rivera a few minutes later about whether or not actually he's ready to name Sam as a starter, kind of based off what he said. Obviously, also around the league, you got starters being named, most notably Anthony Richardson yesterday in Indianapolis. And Rivera declined to do that at this time. And then a couple of us, Sam Fortier, Matt Paris, and a couple of the fellas on the beat were talking about whether or not that was a big deal. And I think we all agree that, like, it's silly. We all know Sam Howell is going to be the starting quarterback. I just understand that this process has been on a timeline the whole time, and we're not at the point in the timeline where he names the starter yet. It's probably Friday. My guess is Friday Sam Howell gets named the starter for the regular season, or that they do it after the Baltimore game. Oh, we're going to get through the game and then we'll make that decision. But they know, like, Sam has been the starter the whole time. Jacoby's barely got any reps with the ones. And if Jacoby was going to have a legitimate shot at starting, he would have gotten reps with the ones against Baltimore. But the whole time, this has been a track towards these two practices. And Sam had to perform well against the Ravens. He performed as well as he had against his own defense, at times better. And thus, that was kind of the safety net. He crosses that bar. He's going to be the starter. Sam will be the starter. He is QB1. He has been the whole time. Nothing has changed. And all they were doing was leaving room for things to change in case they did. They weren't rooting for it, but you never want to box yourself in if you don't have to. And that's, I think, exactly how this process was played out. That's why I do not think it's a big deal that they haven't done this yet. And it's as simple as this. Like, if Ron truly wants to empower and has empowered Eric, and he wants his input, and he's like, hey, man, it's your offense, he can't go without talking to Eric, even if he knows what Eric is going to say, and go, hey, I don't know if you saw in the press earlier, when the Hoffman guy from 980 asked me to name a starter, I just went ahead and told him Sam is the guy. And Eric would probably be like, yeah, like, I wish we would have talked about it first. So why do that? Why not just stick with your process? They're going to go back. They're going to watch the tape. They're going to go, okay, who do we want QB1 to be? Tavita, Sam, Eric, Sam. Okay, I also would like Sam. And then Ron goes out and makes his announcement, whether it's Friday or he leaks it to Albert Breer or whatever happens. Like, Sam is going to be the starter. And it's not really news. And it's not news that he declined to name one today. Like, nothing has changed. news. It has the word new in it. There's nothing new that happened today other than I asked a question. Ron answered it in the way that I would have predicted, and I asked him just in case. And now everybody's writing about it. So that's how that went down. I was also curious, though. Oh, by the way, real quick, just to close out on the O-line, they've got some stuff to figure out, but largely have done well. Sadiq Charles, by the way, left practice early today, so his injury woes continue. I think what's pretty clear is that even if Sadiq wins the job, it is very unlikely he's going to be able to play every snap all camp long or all season long. So, Chris Paul, stay ready. I did want to hear from John Harbaugh, though, because obviously there were two teams out there. It's not like you're asking a ton of questions to Ron Rivera about the Ravens. But Harbaugh, when you start talking about the overall impressions of practice, what he thinks about the Commanders is something that I'm interested in, and how the practices went. So here was the Ravens head coach after the practice today.
Out here, appreciate the scene. You look around, you see the fans. Both teams had fans here. Obviously, they had some fans that came up, which is fun. Appreciate Ron Rivera, the Commanders organization, for bringing the team up here. Appreciate their team for the good competition, man. Good practices, and just a first-class coaching staff there, and all that. So I'm just really happy that we got a chance to get this in. I think we got better because of the practices and all that, and I hope they feel the same way. Now we'll be on to our next routine. We'll play them Monday night, and we'll be going forward from here. So.
And one more quick thought from Harbaugh. Ron has given kind of his thoughts on the joint practice thing. Why did Harbaugh want to do this? What are, to him, the advantages and perhaps some disadvantages of joint practice?
I think it's a really good question. Certainly an advantage. How significant is the thing you have to decide? If anything's out there, I'm sure that this was live streamed, so I'm sure that the other teams will have those plays that they see and all that. So they'll look at that. Their scouts will look at the players on it just like they would a game. We do the same thing, with other practices. You have to make a determination for the organization. Do you want to shut it all down and not let your fans see any of it? Or do you want to give your fans a chance to see it? So, that you weigh it out. Coaches, obviously, we're more concerned with the information. But I also feel like it's worth the work. It's worth getting out here, going against another team and getting the work. And we're pretty conscientious about what we allow, what we call and what we run.
Here's the thing overall about the joint practice and trying to explain the value. And I've tried to do this a couple different ways over the past few weeks and certainly the last few days, but nobody did it better than Kendall Fuller. I asked Kendall how missing the first preseason game affects his ramp up to the season. And he kind of chuckled and he goes, man, missing one series isn't going to do anything. And it's a good reminder that starters in the league, especially established guys like a Kendall Fuller, get so few reps in the preseason that you take what you think preseason is, a chance to go against another team and play real football, and you put that into dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of reps over the course of 2 days in a joint practice. And while it's not quite real football, it is super competitive, and you get to work on very specific situations that you will encounter in a regular season or over the course of a regular season that you might not in a single or even 2 or 3 preseason games where you play 1 or 2 series. If you're the starters, you never get to work on a 2-minute drive because you never are in a game till the 2-minute mark of a half. So getting to do those kinds of things in a joint practice setting is as good as you can get in terms of preparing yourself for the regular season. The sheer number of reps you get as a starter in a joint practice makes it worth it, and it's why I think it stinks the high heavens that Chase Young was not able to participate in these 2 days, which is why I think it's a big opportunity cost for him, not a fatal one to his career or his season by any means, but a big giant bummer. And why, for instance, the Ravens had a bunch of guys out there these last 2 days playing, and Roquan Smith is out there going head-to-head against Brian Robinson in pass protection and trying to cover him in like one-on-one passing drills, and why he won't be out there at all when the Ravens take the field Monday night. They will continue to not play anyone. That's how they handle the preseason. And by the way, they still somehow have won 24 straight preseason games. All right, when we get back, what did Mitch Tischler Mitch Tischler see? That was a tongue twister. I didn't know that. What did Mitch Tischler see? He'll answer that next here on the Team 980.
You can listen to the Team 980.
It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980. Always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Hope everyone is having a great Wednesday, halfway through the week. Joint practices in the books, and our buddy Mitch Tischler, Beltway Football Podcast, was there with me. Mitchell, good to take in some practice with you. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing well. So, sir, we always talk line when we got you, an area of expertise for you. And certainly, I think the biggest question going into these practices, I know it's hard to watch everything. That was kind of the, maybe if we had 4 days worth, we would have figured out how to watch more of it. But it was a constant adventure. Anyway, the point is, or the question is, what did you take out of these practices in terms of the Commanders' offensive line and how confident you are with them going into the season?
You know what, Craig? I thought we did a pretty good job today of getting to high ground and being able to watch a little bit of both sides of the ball practicing.
I think we definitely did better. I don't know if good, but I'll give us better.
I think we found the best possible spot to watch practice. How about that? But, yeah, I thought the O-line looked good. For all the complaints that and worries that we've had about them between the Browns game and, all offseason, I thought for the past 2 days they held their own against the Ravens defensive front, and maybe not just held their own, but kind of beat them a little bit. And I think you saw some of that Ravens D-line frustration boil over in some of those one-on-one drills because some of the scraps and fracases that broke out were mostly started by Ravens players who were kind of getting their butts kicked. And we're not used to saying that about the Commanders' O-line, but they looked pretty good in one-on-one drills. They were pretty solid, and then overall as a group, the ones did a great job of protecting Sam in 11-on-11 drills, and I was happy with what I saw from them, and I'm hoping that it carries over to Monday night against the Ravens, but more so Sunday against the Cardinals, September 10th.
Yeah, the one area that I kind of have concerns about, like definitive concerns at this point, is how they handled pressure. Like, it's one thing in a practice setting to be like, that's a defensive advantage. Like, that's a drill where the defense has the advantage. It is a blitz period. Obviously it is going to be a difficult task for the offense, and you do not expect them to win every rep, but you also don't expect them to lose, perhaps with the consistency they did in some short bursts over the last couple of days. And we saw some issues with pressure in the preseason game against Cleveland. How confident are you that they can work those out before the regular season begins?
Yeah, I agree with you. There was some pressure, but I think mostly yesterday when we're talking about the ones versus ones, the Ravens were showing a basic, four-man rush, and I thought the O-line held up well against that. Today they brought a little more pressure. They got a little more exotic, and I think kind of like the Browns game, I think about the one kind of floater that Sam Howell tried to throw out to Brian Robinson that got knocked down last Friday against the Browns. I think you're seeing Sam kind of take some of the blitzers and say, hey, that's my guy. I'm going to let my front five take care of the front four and any additional pressure that may come. And if there's a free rusher coming off the edge, that's on the quarterback. That's on Sam Howell. I think is taking that onus to say, okay, I'm going to try and beat that guy. And I think that's what kind of makes these joint practices great, is that's an opportunity for him to kind of get a feel for A, how quickly players are going to kind of close on him, B, how well he's going to be able to move in the pocket, and C, get rid of the ball quickly. And yeah, there were times that wasn't successful, but there were also times that it was. And I think they were able to get some real good work in and kind of figure out between him and Nick Gates some of those communication things that you can work on when you're practicing against your own team. But ultimately, it's a little bit different to see how another team kind of reacts to you. But overall, I thought they did well with it, and he got pressured some today. And one of the plays that set off one of the little scrums was a free blitzer up the middle that kind of got a hand in Sam Howell's face mask, and then obviously the O-line starts to come to his defense, and everything kind of jumped off from there. But they didn't win every rep against the ones 11-on-11, but I thought as a whole they did a good job of holding their own and showed way better than we've seen in either training camp or in that first preseason game.
Mitch Tischler, Beltway Football Podcast, with us here on the Hoffman Show. Was that the Gibson one that he was in the middle of? The scrap?
Yeah. So Sam, it seemed like a blitz came up the middle. Sam got touched in the face or face mask or helmet. Then all of a sudden Antonio Gibson just gets kind of cold cocked, and things go from there. I said kind of the one thing I love taking away from this is that you learn kind of who you want in your foxhole. And a couple of those guys up front, Nick Gates and Sam Cosmi, are two guys that were not afraid to get in the middle and make sure that the Ravens defenders knew kind of where they stood. And even the coaching staff started getting into it, kind of barking a little bit about like, bring your blitzes all you want, but don't touch our quarterback. Just like the Ravens would have gone nuts had Lamar Jackson, taken a hand to the face, himself. So it was, there were a couple plays that weren't football kosher plays, but that happens when you get two teams that are pretty fired up.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I was wondering what happened with the Gibson scrum, because I remember looking up and seeing what felt like Antonio being thrown across the field, and I was like, that's less than ideal. And I know Ravens players might have been pretty ticked at him for some of the physicality he brought yesterday, which I would find ironic considering the physicality that they were bringing, which often crossed the line. Mitch Tischler, again, Beltway Football Podcast with us here on the Hoffman Show. Anything that you feel like you learned about this team over this 2 days, where you walk out of camp today thinking about something very differently than you did walking into Owings Mills 2 days ago?
I mean, one of the big things that we haven't gotten to see a lot in training camp, and mostly because of injury, has been Sadiq Charles at left guard. To me, I think that's, kind of the most consequential starting job that's kind of up for grabs. And I thought over the 2 days in Baltimore, he showed kind of where he is better than Chris Paul, and that's with his athleticism, his ability to get downfield to the second level. He held up extremely well in pass blocking. Of course, it's Sadiq Charles, and the biggest issue is going to be injury again today. He felt something in his calf a second time, and so they held him out kind of the back end of practice, which is less than ideal. But I think, for all the talk about how Chris Paul has kind of come along and, made some good strides, and he did look good at times against the Browns, I think you see the real difference between a guy like Sadiq and Chris Paul, and I think it is a pretty noticeable difference. And Sadiq will, as long as he can stay healthy, can give you a whole lot more than Chris can in the on the second level, in the screen game and the quick passes and blocking downfield.
Do you trust him, though, Sadiq? Like, even putting the injuries aside, he clearly has a higher upside. But do you trust him to be consistent enough on the basics to surpass Chris Paul as the better option for this team?
I mean, I'll start with, I don't think Sadiq has to pass Chris Paul. I think it's Sadiq's job if he's healthy.
Sure,
the coaching
fair.
staff likes him a little bit better. My counter to that is, what gives you faith that you trust Chris Paul? I think the issue is that the guard situation hasn't been handled particularly well, either through the draft or free agency in the past, 2 seasons plus. So you end up with a kind of best case scenario. And as I talk about Sadiq, kind of playing well and showing well, he's the best of the options that they have. Doesn't mean he's a, top tier Pro Bowl, all pro type option, but with the guys that they have in camp, he's the guy that I believe gives you the best chance to win.
Mitch Tischler, of course, Beltway Football Podcast with us here on the Hoffman Show. So have you and JP done any roster projections yet, or do you kind of have one living in your head?
We kind of started discussing it today, because one of the standouts in camp and now in the joint practices was Andre Jones.
Yes.
The 7th round, Louisiana Lafayette. He got some work with the ones today, with Chase Young being out, with the stinger, and to have the 7th rounder, get first team reps is pretty impressive. And then, there was one play that stood out to me in red zone when Lamar Jackson kind of got to the outside, and Andre Jones was able to kind of keep him contained, which is obviously an issue that this defensive line and this defense has had with mobile quarterbacks over the years. And I think kind of the combination of his ability to, be a straight line kind of specialty pass rusher, but also have the athleticism to contain a guy like Lamar is super impressive. And if he's at a point that he's kind of getting number 1 reps and getting real reps with the team, he's probably going to be on the roster. And so we started kind of going down the road of, what kind of implications would this have as we go down. But it's like most years, I feel like you probably know about 48 to 50 players, 45 to 50 players or so on the team. And there's a couple of back end battles that you got to pay attention to. Yeah.
So I'm glad you mentioned Jones. I want to circle back to him and some other D-line stuff that I saw today that I think is interesting in a second. But staying with the O-line, when you start to do make the list, and, a guy like Tyler Larson, who's really solid as a backup center, but what do you got from him at guard? And also Ricky Stromberg, they spent a 3rd-round pick on. Braden Daniels, where does he fit? Obviously, guys like Mason Brooks, who have had really, really good camps. Who is there someone who I think would surprise fans that's going to get cut off this O-line, whether they wind up on the practice squad or not? Is there a guy that you, as you start to do the math, think that guy's going to be on the wrong side of a numbers game?
Yeah, to me, I think, Mason Brooks is a name that folks got a little bit excited about. He had a couple really good days in practice. I think since then he's, kind of tapered off a little bit, and he's a guy that I think they're going to try and probably would end up on the wrong side of things and hope that they can get him through to the practice squad. Even along the O-line, which there are questions to, you kind of have a pretty set, 9-10 guys, because you have your 5 starters. You have your 2 draft picks, Braden Daniels and Ricky Stromberg. That's 7. Chris Paul is your backup guard. That's 8. Cornelius Lucas is your backup tackle. That's 9. And then the question is Tyler Larson number 10? Are you keeping 10? Is Aaron Montero, a guy who has a little bit of tackle guard, position flex? Is he number 10? Ultimately, I think Tyler Larson is probably number 10 there. And, I think you're looking at kind of your set O-line right there. So there is some consternation about the ability to get their draft picks on the field. But ultimately, I think that they're going to have just enough depth that they're going to be able to keep both of those guys, Braden Daniels and Ricky Stromberg, despite the fact that they're probably neither of them are really ready to play just yet.
Yeah, it does get real funky real quick, but I think you're probably right. I think that's what we have when we did our roster projection earlier in the week. So defensive line wise, it also starts to get real funky. And one of the ways that it looks like they are trying to resolve some of the backup that they have at that position, again, good problem to have, is I have seen a lot of James Smith-Williams rushing inside as a 3 technique. F.A. Obata did some of that last year. He has also been inside. What have you made of some of the D-line? And obviously we saw Chase actually in some one-on-ones. I don't know that we've seen it in team yet, but we saw some one-on-ones with Chase rushing inside back in Ashburn. What do you make of how Jack Del Rio and the defensive line crew were trying to use kind of this surplus of edge rushers and what it means for, what they can do on the field and also for who makes the roster?
Yeah, I mean, as much as Ron Rivera loves that word position flex, I think, when you talk about some of these edge rushers, F.A. Obata and James Smith-Williams are 2 guys that have the size to rush on the inside, but also the speed to play on the outside. And I think that they have a little bit of a glut of kind of edge rushers, especially when you look at them drafting KJ Henry in the 5th round and Andre Jones in the 7th. I mean, you're going to keep 6 and maybe 7 quote unquote edge rushers. But if you count F.A. Obata and JSW, James Williams, both as kind of half outside, half inside, you can see where they can kind of make the numbers work, because on the inside, Deron Payne, John Allen, Fedarian Mathis are probably the 3 that are, locks for this roster. And then I think you start getting into the question of John Ridgeway. I think, do you need both Ridgeway and Fedarian Mathis? They're both kind of similar players. They don't play a whole lot of linebackers as a whole, so maybe they keep one less linebacker and one extra D lineman, knowing that they play that 5-man front often enough that they can then keep both Ridgeway and Fedarian Mathis. But ultimately, I think having too many good edge rushers is a pretty nice problem to have.
Yeah, I would say that it's not even a problem at all, outside of the tough calls you got to make on one particular day of the year on cutdown day. They might have a similar problem on the defensive backfield. Like, they got a bunch of guys that, for the defensive side, though, or the defensive backs, I should say, the position flex seems to be more of a complicating issue than a helping issue. It's like, if Wild Goose is good inside, but he's not good outside, like, what does that mean? What do we do with Quan Martin? How do we count him? How do we account for him? Is there anybody that you think had a particularly good couple of days on the defensive backfield side of things that you think may have earned themselves a roster spot or solidified their spot moving into the back half of camp or back half of the preseason?
I mean, this is a guy, Emmanuel Forbes was on the roster, period, so this is kind of separate. But I thought he looked extremely good over the 2 days. I loved what I saw from him, and I loved what Jack Del Rio and the coaching staff did with him, leaving him out on an island with Odell Beckham and all the different Ravens receivers. Kind of let him trial by fire, and I loved what I saw from him, and I love how much trash he was talking in the faces of the receivers. It was pretty fun to watch. I think I agree with you when you look at kind of the back end guys. There's some questions about where they go with it, but I think Quan Martin kind of might negate a guy like Rashad Wild Goose because they both are kind of the same type of player. I know they want Quan to play a little bit in that, slot / Buffalo nickel type role. And obviously that's something that Jeremy Reeves can do as well. And, Percy Butler's had a really, really good camp. So I don't know that there are a bunch of names that folks have gotten to know over the years because there have been so many injuries in the secondary, and they've gotten down to the, Tariq Castro Fields and Rashad Wallagooses of the world, and, even beyond that, in previous years, that I think that, that group is kind of set. You have Fuller, Cam Curl, Derek Forrest, Forbes, BSJ, Christian Holmes, Jeremy Reed, Percy Butler, Danny Johnson, Quan Martin. There's your 10 DBs. Whether you want to classify them as corners or safeties, that's on you. But I think that's kind of your 10 DBs. You have 10 D linemen, and then it's 3-4 linebackers that they keep. And I think that's kind of rounds out your defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, no, I think we're on almost the exact I'd have to go double check my list, but it sounds like we're on pretty much the exact same page. All right, I don't want to end on a bummer, so I'm going to ask you something more fun, broad, and light after this. But is there anybody whose stock got hurt in these two practices? Anyone that walks away from Owings Mills going like, damn, that was a missed opportunity?
I mean, I think kind of big picture, Curtis Hodges has been a guy in camp who's kind of totally underperformed and had a big opportunity, especially with the Logan Thomas injuries that are going on. There's not a lot of depth at tight end, and we knew that coming into the season. And then you pile on top of that the Logan Thomas injuries. Curtis Hodges hasn't shown a ton. He hasn't caught the ball particularly well. He hasn't blocked particularly well. He certainly hasn't flashed in my eyes. And I think you're starting to see, Alex Arma, who's I guess technically a fullback, but has been getting a lot of work with the tight ends, especially with the Logan injury, kind of step into that number 3/number 4 tight end role. And, I keep saying it, and I hate it so much when Ron talks about position flex, because I kind of love the idea of having a guy who's really good at the position that he's playing, as opposed to being partially good at one position and partially good at another. But Curtis Hodges is somebody who I think had a big opportunity here, and he's still got 2 more weeks of camp to make it happen, but he's got to make it happen quickly.
No, I think that's a great call. And last but not least, Mitchell, you've seen a lot of practices from a lot of different coaches over the years. I don't know how many Baltimore practices you've covered in your day, but anything from the way Baltimore does things that you're like, oh, that was cool, interesting, good, bad, otherwise noteworthy?
Prior to this year, prior to watching Eric Bieniemy run his practices, I would have been impressed with kind of the speed with which Harbaugh runs through their drills and their different sessions. But now that Eric Bieniemy's here, that's something that he's brought to the Commanders team, and that's not something that this group has had. And I don't just mean that under Ron Rivera, going back even to Jay Gruden and Mike Shanahan, that kind of speed and efficiency of practice has never been something that I've been particularly impressed with. And as an overall kind of feeling, I've watched the Redskins football team, Commanders, do these joint practices a couple different times over the years with the Texans and the Patriots, and now obviously the Ravens, and they've always been kind of the outclassed team. They've always been kind of the younger brother of these other franchises, and it's not the case anymore. And maybe it's the joy in new ownership and the freedom with which everyone's working. It might be Eric Bieniemy coming in and kind of being a little bit of a tough guy and kind of going back to old school football. It might be Ron Rivera kind of allowing the coordinators to do their thing, but this is an NFL football team. It's an NFL football franchise, and we haven't always been able to say that over the years. And so it just kind of made that point, brought that point home watching these two days in Baltimore.
Yeah, no, I agree. They stood up and actually, you talk about the tempo. There's a couple times I was like, man, I feel like Bieniemy's probably losing his mind right now, because there actually felt like there was more standing around in these practices than there was in the practices in Ashburn. But like you said, compared to what it's been in the past, like night and day difference. Mitch Tischler, Beltway Football Podcast. Check him out daily after practice. Mitch and JP Finley. Mitchell, good to see you earlier today. Thanks for coming on the show, and I'll see you. I'll probably be back out in Ashburn next week, so I'll see you then.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it. Thanks for having me, bud.
Absolutely. Thank you. Mitchell Tischler, everybody. A gentleman and a scholar. All right, when we get back here on the Hoffman Show, we'll be joined by someone who, based off his Twitter feed, has a little bit of a different recollection of practice. He covers the Ravens for our sister station, 105.7 The Fan. What did he see out there today and yesterday in Owings Mills? We'll talk to a Ravens insider next for Not My Beat on the Team 980. to do. Fire up the old Odyssey app. That's what Michael Phillips said. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. That's why you fire it up, so you can listen to the show. You can also rewind any show from the previous 24 hours. So say if you want to know what I told the Junkies this morning at 8:25 about the day one of Commanders and Ravens joint practice, you can do that. Or you just keep listening right now and get insight from not only me, but a Ravens expert on day two. It is time for Not My Beat. Cordell Woodward joins us. He covers the Ravens and hosts the Baltimore equivalent of Take Command, if you will, for our Odyssey family of stations. 105.7 The Fan, the radio station up in Baltimore. Cordell, what's up, man? How are you?
What's going on, Craig? Appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. So let me start as broad as I possibly can. What did you take away? Like, what's the big thing that you walk away from these 2 days of practices thinking about?
Well, these are two teams that are physical, both of them, especially on the defensive side of the ball for both teams. And offensively on both sides, you have two teams that have explosive players. Obviously, on the Ravens side, you've got Lamar Jackson, Odell Beckham's out there now, Zay Flowers, the rookie. For the Commanders, Sam Howell taking over. We don't know. I know Ron Rivera didn't commit to a starter just yet, but the thought is right now that Sam Howell will be the guy in the backfield, but that receiving core of Terry McLaurin, Dotson, and Curtis Samuel is a dangerous trio. So, I mean, everything that I expected to see from both teams, for the most part, I felt like I got. I felt like there were days where each side of the ball was winning. Obviously, I saw a lot more of the Ravens than Commanders, but I thought the Ravens defensive line was really good in these joint practices. Obviously, their secondary is a huge issue for them for a multitude of reasons. But even still, that was not a Ravens type of matchup against the Commanders wide receivers. Obviously, they have them in that matchup, but definitely good work for both teams.
Yeah, definitely. And the Ravens have had some injury issues. Marlon Humphrey, that was kind of the big story I'm sure you were working on today, is that Marlon Humphrey is going to miss first couple of games of the regular season, at least a month, according to John Harbaugh, with a foot issue that he got cleaned up surgically. I think today they actually had the surgery. So big loss for Baltimore. But yeah, I saw that you had tweeted out that the Ravens defensive line was really taking it to the Commanders offensive line. I wanted to double click on that for a second because I think there were periods where that was true. I also think there were a lot of pressure periods, like blitz periods, where the Commanders did not handle that well in the combination of quarterback and offensive line. But how would you score that matchup, like boxing match style, over the 2 days overall?
Oh, so I will acknowledge on Monday, or I should say Tuesday, I was more so on the Ravens offense, Commanders defense side. So today was really the day that I locked in on the Commanders offense versus the Ravens defense. I heard yesterday was also a good day from guys like Odafe Oweh for the Ravens and David Ojabo and those guys. But I can't attest to that me personally. But as far as today, I would say, I don't know if it was necessarily a knockdown to say 10-8. But I would give it 10-9. I would give it 10-9 Ravens defensive line. I mean, my first notes here in the team session is a pressure right off the bat from Ardarius Washington, who is blitzing at the time, blitzing from the nickel corner spot, but he came scot-free on that play and got pressure from Howell, who did make a nice pass rolling out to hit Curtis Samuel down the field.
Yeah, I remember the play. That was a sack. A nice throw by Howell, but that was a sack.
Yeah, that was definitely a sack. I have some here from Ojabo and Odafe Oweh meeting Sam Howell in the backfield as well. I thought Matabike and those inside guys for the Ravens did a really good job in the run game, blowing things up. Travis Jones as well, but I just felt like today was it was at various points in times where Howell had to show how athletic he can be, where he's moving around in the pocket, having to escape the pocket quite a few times. Sometimes he made some throws on the move. He made a couple of nice throws on the moves today, and some of them weren't always that great. But I know it's going to be a bit mixed bag for him. But yeah, I would say that the Ravens D-line won the battle today.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I don't think it was as dominant as some people said, or like, when the twos got out there, you get down the roster a little bit. I thought the Commanders' 2 offensive line won their round, if you will. But definitely something that we're keeping an eye on in Washington is that first string offensive line. 2-0 line doesn't help you once the regular season starts.
No,
not unless something's gone wrong with the one. So cool story, bro. Cordell Woodward is with us on the Hoffman Show, 105.7 The Fan up in Baltimore. I'm curious your impressions overall of Washington, what you thought they would be coming into these 2 practices, and do you leave perhaps a little bit more respect for what they are building here in D.C. and what they can be this regular season?
Well, I think you know what you have with the Commanders. That's the one thing. I can't sit here and say that anything has necessarily surprised me from what I saw the last 2 days compared to what I expect from them going into the season. We know what their strong points are. It's right up front on the defensive line. It's the wide receiver group on the offensive side of the ball. I still have questions in the backfield in terms of big play ability. I just don't know if they have that home run hitter in the backfield. Brian Robinson is a guy that can at least keep you on schedule to a degree, but I don't know how much of a push the offensive line is going to be able to get consistently. I was hoping that they kind of addressed that in the offseason in the backfield, especially when you see a guy like DeAndre Swift go to Philly for literally nothing. And he looked pretty good in the preseason game against the Ravens Saturday night. That's a little bit of a concern with me. Obviously, the tight end position as well. Although I do like Cole Turner. Cole Turner.
I thought he had 2 really good days. Yeah.
I like Cole Turner a lot. I like his versatility. John Bates, he's not as athletic, I would say, as Cole Turner, but he has good hands. He had a couple of good catches today. Defensively, I know Emmanuel Forbes it's been an up and down day, especially I see all the clips going around on Twitter and stuff. It was great seeing him and Zay Flowers, the 2 first rounders, match up. But that was my first chance to get a really good look at Emmanuel Forbes. And I was impressed with what I saw. I mean, he's winning some, he's losing some. He's going up against crafty receivers like Beckham and Zay Flowers. But you do like the fact that he's got long arms, he's rangy, and he fights throughout the route. So I pretty much what I expected to get from the Commanders, I felt like I got.
Yeah, the thing with Forbes too, that's impossible to see or not impossible, but is impossible to see in the one-on-ones, is that he is incredibly tactically smart. And so, when you don't have the chance to play with help because it's a one-on-one drill, obviously you're gonna miss out on that. I'm curious what you thought of Mark Andrews' 2 days. He was in the middle of the scuffle yesterday. I was talking to Sherry Burris from NFL Network yesterday on the show, and she said that guys, even on his own team, sometimes complain about him practicing harder than they would like him to. So that was not necessarily surprising. But the battle between him and Cam Curl was one that caught my eye a few times. What did you make of Mark Andrews, the Ravens tight end, and what he was able to do against this Commander secondary in the 2 days?
Yeah, I'll be honest, Cam Curl, he impressed me these last couple of days. I mean, there's not many people that can guard Mark Andrews. He's one of the top 3 tight ends in the NFL, in my opinion. So he's a tough cover, no matter if it's a cornerback, a safety, or linebacker. But I did think that Cam Curl did a good job on him. Mark Andrews hit on his own plays a couple of times. I know he had the deep ball from Lamar in day 1 that he caught. But overall, it did feel like the things that the Commanders were doing were getting under his skin a little bit. And Mark Andrews practices and plays with a ton of passion every day. He is the guy that probably takes practice a little more serious than the next guy. About a week or so ago, even in the Ravens' own practice, he and Roquan Smith are kind of just jawing at each other all day throughout that practice. Mark is very vocal, so I figured coming into this joint practice, he'd be a guy to probably keep your eye on for a variety of reasons. But yeah, I will give it to Cam Curl. I thought he did a pretty good job against Mark Andrews, and just the Commanders' defense. I just feel like they annoyed him a little bit and got him a little bit out of his game. He left practice early. I saw, like I said, I was on the defensive side, but I did notice Mark walking inside the building before practice ended without his helmet, taking off his gloves, and he didn't look happy. And he looked healthy, which, of course, is the important thing. But, yeah, I felt like the Commanders got in his head a little bit these last couple of days.
Cordell Woodward, 105.7 The Fan, with us here on the Team 980. What did Harbaugh say about the fights? Because from my vantage point, it looked like a lot of those were started because the Ravens really pushed things past the whistle. They were the team that was kind of going beyond it. Obviously, the Commanders responded. But Rivera was extremely clear that he wanted none of that. Bieniemy was ready to kill someone when some of that stuff bubbled over involving the Commanders' offensive line, saying, we don't have time for this. Like, we're here to get better, focus. What did the Ravens coaching staff have to say about the when the physicality went overboard?
Yeah, John Harbaugh tried his best to pretty much downplay it. I mean, he said it was expected. He said it didn't really get too out of hand. But he also said that he felt like they were still able to get good work in. So I feel like they kind of glanced over it. And like I said, for me, I expected it going in. I read a lot of the reports about how at the Commanders practices, how it can get, the trash talk can get a little crazy. I know the type of environment Bieniemy kind of pushes. I got to get a firsthand look at that the last couple of days. And I know how this Ravens team, how they act, how they like to talk trash, and how they play very physical. This defense, the last couple of weeks, the Ravens don't tackle in practice, but they have been getting as close to tackling as you possibly can, a little past thud, I would say. So I felt like coming into this joint practice, something was going to spill over. So I got what I expected. But yeah, a lot of these Ravens guys too, especially the starters, they're not playing in the preseason for the most part. So this is kind of the first chance, and maybe their only chance, to get a taste of a different team before the regular season starts. So I just think it was a lot of that going on, and you can't downplay the DC versus Baltimore stuff that I'm sure they know about as well.
For sure. All right, last thing. Let's end there, the preseason game of it all, which is funny because I don't think some people realize in the Commanders fan base necessarily, and like, why would they if you're not paying attention to the Ravens too? The Ravens don't play guys in the preseason, yet they have won 24 straight preseason games. Do they make it 25 / more importantly, what do you actually expect from like a process standpoint on Monday night?
Well, it'll be tough. I mean, their cornerback room is down to literally nothing at this point. I mean, they're kind of scraping.
What, 6 guys who didn't practice today in that position?
Quite a few. I don't have the list in front of me, but I do tweet out the list of who's not practicing, and it's a lot of cornerbacks.
I think you needed 2 tweets today.
Yeah, I might have. I might get a tryout at quarterback. But
I heard you're pretty good though, so I
mean, I try. I do what I can. But I will say this: the Commanders' wide receiver room is very deep. They had quite a few guys out there that I thought were really good. That is crisp route running, really sharp hands. So I think the Ravens streak is in trouble this week for the reason of they don't play a lot of starters. The Commanders played starters against the Browns. I expect them to probably play some again in this game. That compounded with Tyler Huntley, the Ravens' backup quarterback, isn't going to play in this game. He's dealing with a hamstring injury. So you're going to get a lot of Josh Johnson, a lot of Anthony Brown Jr., and it's probably not going to look that pretty offensively for the Ravens. I think the streak probably ends.
All right. The Jalen Sample or Bryson Tremaine game-winning touchdown in the fourth quarter. You heard it here first. Cordell Woodward, 105.7 The Fan. And then remind me of the name of the pod that you guys do as well.
Yeah, me and my co-host Rita Hubbard, we do the Win and Drive podcast for Odyssey. So we keep, as all Ravens content all day, every day, and we're keeping fans updated, especially now during training camp and preseason and beyond into the season as well. Yeah,
so make sure you check that out, the Winning Drive. Just search it, the Take Command of Baltimore, if you will, as we do ours here in DC, myself and Logan Paulson. So if you want the Ravens take, or an even deeper Ravens take, I should say, on the joint practices beyond what Cordell just gave you here in these 15 minutes. You can check that out sometime this week. Cordell, appreciate it. If any more Ravens news breaks throughout the season, we'd love to have you back. Appreciate your time here on a busy day.
Yeah, man. Appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. That's Cordell Woodward, everybody, with us here on the Hoffman Show. And when we get back, a couple other things from the end of the notebook about practice. And then at 5:30, it is time. Never read the comments still to come here. And then pick 6 and 6. Man, we got a lot to do. Don't go anywhere. It's Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and always live on the free Odyssey app.
A new era of the
It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Day 2 of joint practices. I think we're counting this, Anthony, as day 20 of training camp. At least for the Pick 6 graphic is going to say day 20, and that's what we're going with. We're going with day 20 because it started training camp. I don't know. Well, it kind of started on a Wednesday. Maybe today's day 21. What was the day of the first practice? These are the important questions. It was a Wednesday, wasn't it? So today should be day 21 then.
Yep, technically.
Damn. So there's the 26th to the 2nd. That was 7. To the 9th, that's 14th. To the 16th, it's 21. Should I change the graphic or should we just roll with it?
What do you have on the graphic?
Day 20.
I hate that for you, Craig. I think it should be 21.
Yeah. Because I'm counting all the off days. I'm counting the games.
Well, if you count the off days, then we're not at day 20.
Right.
And if you count the game,
we're not. Also, yeah, we just start subtracting. I just think we're going to go with, like, since camp opened. Because, hey, a recovery day is still a day. A game day is still a day.
Oh. 15?
No, I'm saying we count it all. Because that actually makes it easy.
You want to actually incorporate it.
Yeah. I mean,
we're at 21 then.
Then we should be at 21.
Okay.
The poor people that watch this stuff on demand on YouTube that are just trying to, like, if you watch the on-demand clips because you can't stream us live at 6 o'clock, or you're not listening live at 6 o'clock, and you're like, hey, I really like that Pick 6 segment, and I like to watch it back on YouTube, the day at the bottom of the graphic means nothing. Just know that. Just if you want to know what day it is, see what day that it got posted, and figure out which practice happened closest to that, and that's the day that we're talking about. So that's where we're going with. Whatever day it is, today was not the day that Ron Rivera decided to name a starting quarterback. Are you, Anthony, in the camp that thinks this is we played big deal, little deal yesterday. Big deal, little deal. Ron Rivera declines to answer when asked by the Team 980's Craig Hoffman. Why did I just third person myself? When I asked him, are you ready to name a starter?
I don't think it's a big deal that he declined to, give you an answer today. But I do expect an answer before Monday's game against the Ravens. I think it would be weird if he was to give you an answer the day after the Ravens game. What if Sam goes out there, doesn't play particularly well, and he's like, Sam is QB1? That would be weird. And then, everybody in the camp of Jacoby would be coming out of nowhere.
Hold on. Who's in Jacoby's camp? Jacoby, his family?
But if Sam goes out there, lays an egg, Jacoby goes out there, plays well, now we're talking about a QB battle that we shouldn't even be talking about in the first place. Had Ron Rivera just, anointed Sam QB1 before the game.
I don't even know if Sam's going to play. I think he probably will.
I think he should play. You don't think he should play?
No, I think he should. I mean, the problem is the Ravens don't play anybody. So, Sam's going to go out there with the ones and beat up on the twos and,
reps matter, Craig.
No, I agree.
And guess what? It's different than playing against your own teammates. I think,
and he gets to run out there as a starter at FedEx for the first time, and all that stuff, and that's hunky-dory, and I don't know, man. I just don't think it's a big deal. We all know Sam's going to be the guy, and anyone who's been paying attention knows that. To me, it's the littlest deal of when, and it's on some level, it's just annoying because it's this game that's being played. But I also don't fault him for not saying it today. If I'm Ron and I'm the leader of the team and I'm the head of the organization, I'm not telling someone outside the organization before I tell the people inside. Just because we get our press conference with Rivera coming off the field before he has a chance to sit down and go through everything with EB and Tavita Pritchard doesn't mean that we are actually entitled to that information first. I mean, could Ron, if he had I don't want to say a bit more of a sense of humor, because it's not like Ron is humorless, but if he was a funny man, could he have been like, I've got to talk to EB and Tavita, but I think you guys know what's going to happen. And give a wink, like a literal wink and a nod? Sure. But, he's just being respectful of the process. And, the timeline hasn't changed. The whole time it's been, we got to get through these Baltimore joint practices. We want to see how he looks. They saw how he looks. Based off what we all saw, we know where this is headed. And it's just a matter of, crossing I's and dotting T's, or dotting I's, crossing T's. If you dot your T's and cross your I's, you've made a mistake. Dot your I's, cross your T's, and then they'll name him the starter. I agree. It probably happens on Friday. Maybe we just got the media schedule. He's talking before practice. So by 9 a.m. on Friday, maybe it happens. But if he waits till after the game, like, I don't care about that either. I can't be bothered to care about something where we all already know, and whether or not it's official is all we're waiting on. This isn't like Tampa where it's Trask versus Mayfield, and like when, hey, are you ready to name a starter? No, because they don't actually know who it's going to be. Mm-hmm. Like, we all know why does anybody care? Nope, no answer? You're not even going to hypothetical me here?
I mean, I don't really have an answer anymore. I think
I've convinced you?
Yeah, I mean,
did it again. Yeah.
We all know what it is, so I don't know.
Fortier was ready to bite my head off today.
Why? Oh, because of the question?
He's like, this is so stupid. I was like, because what? Because you didn't get the thing that we all know? I can't possibly be bothered by this. I know a lot of people will. You know what some of them are going to do? They're going to leave a comment on YouTube to tell me about it. Yeah, and then what's going to happen? We're probably going to read it on the radio in a segment called Never Read the Comments, and that'll happen next week, but this week's version is next. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Training camp pick 6 at 6 coming up at the top of the hour, fresh on 6 o'clock. Very much looking forward to that. As always, a recap of the 6 biggest storylines of the day. We pick them, we tell them at 6. That is why it is the pick 6 at 6. Right now, though, Sir Anthony Haney, it is time for a tradition on this here radio show. They tell us we should not really engage in certain parts of the content process. We should definitely post our content. We should tease our content. Hey, tell the people when things are happening on the show. Put that out there on social media. Then make sure you share the content afterwards. But definitely do not engage with the people who comment on it. It's the deepest, darkest underbelly of the internet. No. Do not read the comments. But every single week, 5:30 on a Wednesday, what do we do, Anthony Haney?
We read
Yep.
those comments, baby.
I'm so glad that you gave us a really good one there, because next week we're going to have a fancy new intro for this. We just got the big voice guy, old Jim Cutler, to do some stuff for us. And in my head, the fancy intro includes Anthony going, read those comments, and he just gave me the material I needed to work with. He didn't even know that. You didn't know that, Anthony. Tell the people you didn't know that.
I did not at all.
But next week, you bet your bottom dollar that you're going to see it. Also, for those that are going to watch or that are watching this on demand on YouTube, fancy new video introduction as well. So we got all kinds of stuff we're working on here on the Hoffman Show. But we do dive into the comments each and every week and see what you all have to say about all the things that we do here on the show. Yesterday, we had Mike Jones on the show, of course, the Athletic NFL insider, and he made a comparison of Kirk Cousins to Sam Howell. And I will admit, when he did it, I was like, people are going to leave comments about that, and it's not going to be kind. But this one from Super Sean 43 caught my attention because I thought it was very, very silly. Like, I thought people would miss Mike's point. I did not think people would miss the point. Which Mike's point, to be clear, was a later round drafted guy who turns into a starter, maybe not a superstar, but someone you can win games with. And Sean goes, Super Sean, sorry, Sean, says, nothing about Howell says Kirk Cousins. Sam is for real. Stamp it. Stylistically, there is mostly truth to that. The one comparison that I think Mike made that's good between Howell and Cousins is there are guys that, while you're not going to design a run game around them, can run and pick up a first down. I think Sam is better at it, more mobile, and like a better ball carrier. He'll run some RPO, and like actually there will be some design runs for Howell within that RPO realm this year. But he's not Lamar. He's not Justin Fields by any stretch. But Kirk could pick you up a first down with his legs if you're playing man coverage on 3rd and 6 and you decide to leave 10 yards of space. He can beat you to the line. That is for sure. But to say that like Kirk, and we don't need to get into a Kirk Cousins thing, is like not for real. I mean, Anthony, we should have played the open, was it me and Lap going back and forth? That's, Cousins is the best quarterback that's played here in 30 years. He's one of the best 5 quarterbacks in the NFC easily, which says something about the stacking of quarterbacks AFC to NFC, but like is true. And he did win, 13 games last year? And I realized it was a little bit funky and all the one-score games, all that kind of stuff. But Anthony, I don't say would you kill, because I'm not asking you to admit that you'd commit felonies and end a human life, but like, I'm guessing you would have paid some amount of money to have had Kirk Cousins be the quarterback here from the time that he left until right now.
No question.
If Sam Howell turns into Kirk Cousins and then stays, let's say Howell is here for the next 8 years and plays at what Kirk has done the last 3 or 4 in Minnesota, would you be happy?
I would be ecstatic. Yeah. Talking about multiple Pro Bowls, like they're going to the playoffs, they're winning games. Like, yes, I would love that here in D.C.
Yes. Please, sign me up right now. And I think Sam's also got some qualities that give him a higher ceiling potentially, from arm strength to mobility to just like a moxie and a kind of demeanor that I think Sam's ceiling is higher than Kirk's. I think if you look at them as prospects coming out, obviously Kirk was a 4th rounder, Sam was a 5th, but Cousins never had some of the high-end projections that Howell did. So I get it. I get why people think that he could be better. But God, if you get the production of 4,000-yard seasons and way more touchdowns than picks and the winning, you should be very, very psyched about that. And that's not even defense of Cousins. It's just saying winning and steady quarterback play would be freaking great. Some of the comments on some of the Ravens joint practice content from yesterday. Nobody's commented on anything today because, well, we're doing the show right now. But Daniel A. Moss Jr. says, this is a really good team to measure ourselves against. Monday night will be fun. It's important for everyone to know. Monday night, not that it doesn't matter, but yesterday and today, Tuesday and Wednesday, the joint practices matter way more. You actually got starters on starters. None of the Ravens starters will play on Monday night, and the Commanders starters will play 1, 2, maybe 3 series. So would you rather take more stock into the actual players that are going to be on the field playing or the game because there's a scoreboard? And the answer is you should take more out of the practices. The Commanders showed very well. Without a scoreboard, it's impossible to know who, quote-unquote, won. I tend to think the Commanders came out of this getting exactly what they wanted. Some good coachable moments, but also plenty of success that proves that they can compete with a team on the Ravens level. But Monday, I picked this one almost as a reminder to say, like, Monday is not much. But I'm sure if the Commanders end the Ravens' 24-game winning streak, Ron will be very happy. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, there is a scoreboard. Winning is better than losing. As for some of the fights yesterday, I don't know how to say this person's thing, but his comment says, bro, I'm all for homering, but the Forbes thing was caused by Forbes. The play was over, and he was still punching down at the ball, straight at the Ravens dude's waist and groin. I'd throw a punch at Forbes for that, too. Apparently, what is this? Satsujin 22 has never been to a football practice. Every single play ends with DBs trying to punch at a ball carrier who, even though he has, quote-unquote, been tackled and the play is over, is trying to score a touchdown. Offensive coaches want players to finish. Defensive coaches want players to finish. Those two things come together. Lots of punching. The punch, and in terms of like how the technique is down, and for whatever reason, the Ravens receiver lost it, even though, and maybe the punch was a little extra hard for whatever reason. But, you know, it doesn't happen after almost every play. A receiver who's getting the ball punched at, punching another, or the DB in the head. And so, no, that was not on Emmanuel Forbes. It was very, very silly. And I think before you go comment on YouTube about something like that in that way, perhaps, you know, go to a football practice. They're open to the public, and be right next time. Just a thought. Which was greeted, by the way. I don't feel bad piling on necessarily, because literally every other comment is like, what are you talking about, man? We all saw the video. You can punch at footballs. You can't punch dudes in the head. Which is to say, from Master Gunner 32, you're weak. At first I was like, what did I do? Why am I weak? But no, this was directed at Mark Andrews. You're weak that someone grabbing at the ball gets you so damn frustrated that you throw punches. That is soft and not mentally strong or tough. Just my thought. Hail to the Commanders. I mean, I said this yesterday, and I think it was true today. Mitch said it when he was on the show earlier. Like, I think most of these fights were started by the fact that on those particular reps, the Commanders kicked the Ravens' butt, and the Ravens didn't like it very much. Whether it's one-on-one reps, whether it's the team stuff, and a lot of this stuff did start in one-on-ones. Guys go beyond the whistle and whatever. But some of them were, I think the Forbes one was during a 7-on-7. It might have been an 11-on-11. Anyway, the point is, Commanders win the reps. Ravens keep fighting through the whistle, and occasionally they don't even, just keep fighting football stuff through the whistle. They escalate, whether it's a body slam, whether it's a punch, whether it's whatever, and or in the one that was on the Commanders' offensive field today, like they touched the quarterback. If that happens in a joint practice, there's going to be a fight. Keep your hands to yourself. Dude's got a yellow jersey on. It ain't that hard. Commanders didn't touch Lamar or any of the Ravens quarterbacks. Don't touch Sam Howell, and you won't have an issue. And so I think the lack of discipline from the Ravens was kind of surprising to me. It perhaps is the biggest surprise of these 2 days is that the more mature, more professionally acting team was the Commanders. Not that I expect them to be unprofessional. I just expected both teams to ace that. I really didn't actually think there'd be any scuffles, but that's on me. I should have known better. It's football. Dudes are going to fight. It's hot. It is what it is. All right. On the Chase Young, Montez Sweat comparisons that I asked Trevor Sikkema about. Trevor, of course, Pro Football Focus. And I asked him, and I thought this was really, really interesting. He said that he would still bet on Chase Young being the better player long-term than Montez Sweat. I got a couple of comments on that. First one from Inspirational D2 says, I will choose Chase if he stays healthy and produces similarly to Sweat because to me, the energy he brings to the defense, offense, and overall team building is very important for a good culture. I think that's interesting because I actually would probably on the culture bit go to Montez. He's just more low maintenance. Not that Chase's energy and the barking and his vocal leadership isn't a thing that I think generally elevates. I think sometimes he probably guys might look at him a little sideways. But I think generally he tends to elevate practice. And often Montez is right there barking next to him. But I think Montez is just super low maintenance, low key. He does the work. I think he's incredibly solid on his worst days, and he's phenomenal on his best days. And I think the consistency he's shown is why I would lean Montez over Chase at this point. But the pass rush upside of Chase Young, the most valuable thing on the defensive side of the ball, which is pass rush, he's got more juice. And so we'll see when Chase gets back out there and if he can stay healthy and all of that stuff, if it's worth the upside play to move forward with Chase. But I tend to think the solid nature of what Montez does, which, by the way, with this improved secondary, I think could easily get him double-digit sacks this year, is more than enough to justify moving forward with the more reliable player, even if the upside is slightly lower, because there's so much great stuff that Montez does. Like he's probably the better run player. Certainly has been so far in his career, but Chase is actually pretty good on that front as well. The tip balls is something that Montez does extremely well, although so does Chase. They're just two big, freaky athletes, and it's rare that you get guys like that on the same team because there just aren't that many on the planet, nevertheless, in the league. All right, and then there's this interesting comment. Never read the comments here on the Hoffman Show. Leave yours at Craig Hoffman, at the Team 980, or on an episode of Take Command at 1067 The Fan. Ed349 says, I'll never understand the obsession when it comes to Chase Young with DC sports media. We need to start demanding better from DC sports media. The biggest stories in DC should be how Phil Mathis can't stay healthy and surely wasn't worthy of that second-round pick in which we could have drafted an O-lineman, and Jamin Davis is still struggling on and off the field. But let's constantly talk about Chase Young. Shaking my head. Anthony, how often do we actually talk about Chase Young compared to those other things? Phil Mathis, I'll admit, we haven't talked a lot about Phil Mathis. But he had a season-ending injury last year that was like a freaky thing that his knee got caught in a drill, and I wouldn't say that was indicative of his overall ability to stay on or off the field. This calf thing is definitely a bummer, and he hasn't practiced, and that's less than ideal. But who do you think we've actually talked more about, let's say, since the spring? Jamin or Chase?
Chase.
I think Chase, but like 60-40, 70-30, like it's certainly not like 90-10. I think for our show specifically, like Jamin's been someone that I've talked about a lot.
Nah, Jamin has been the topic for conversation, but I feel like Chase Young, early in the spring, him getting brought up in trade rumors and whether or not we should do this, whether or not we should do that.
And by the way, what did we say when that happened? What did every DC media person say?
Yeah, we're not trading him.
Yeah, why is this a national conversation? Why are you outside of DC obsessed with Chase Young?
And then it boiled down to expectation for Chase Young coming off the injury and things of that nature. But outside of the expectations point, not really much, because we just really want to see Chase out there on the field.
Right. And remind me where was Phil Mathis drafted? The second what?
He was the second round.
Second round. And where was Chase Young drafted?
First.
Yeah, but the second what? That's right. The second overall pick in the first. Right. Yeah. Right. And was it DC Sports Media that said that he had like Hall of Fame potential, was going to be the next in line for the Ohio State Great Rushers? Or was that NFL scouts and evaluators?
Yeah.
See, I think this is where people, like fans, and I'm going to full media defender media guy here. I'm going to embrace being a villain. Let's do this. Media, yes, I give it opinions, but those opinions are based off doing actual reporting and research and talking to experts. So when the media says something, what we are actually doing is merely reflecting the opinions of the people that we cover and then relying also on our experience of actually being there. So NFL people who did not have a file on Chase Young in college because we cover the NFL going, hey, this young guy, NFL scouts really like him. Team evaluators really like him. They think he could be XYZ. That is not like some conspiracy whatever. It is the people who run the teams. Like, what are you talking about? It's not an obsession with Chase Young. It's evaluating the job that Ron Rivera has done in selecting Chase Young and Chase himself potentially being a guy that could be the kind of difference maker that gets you to the next level. Like, that's reality. Yes, Jamin, also something. But spending more time on Phil Mathis, all due respect to Big Phil. I don't want that fella mad at me. That's a big dude. Who, by the way, could be an impact player for them. Versus Chase Young, like, what are we talking about? The drop-off of what you would get from Phil Mathis compared to what John Ridgway gave you last year, not as big of a gap as it should have been, which is a credit to Ridgway. But the gap between what Chase Young is supposed to be, and I'll even as a name here, use a guy that is like my favorite dude on the team on a personal level, James Smith-Williams. Like, James is not going to be a future Hall of Famer. No one ever thought James would be a future Hall of Famer. Hall of Fame person, not a Hall of Fame football player. Good NFL football player. Guy who's going to get a nice little second contract, I think, after the season, whether it's here or somewhere else. But no one ever was like, oh, yeah, that dude, a couple things bounced right for him, Hall of Famer. He doesn't have the physical characteristics. Chase does. That's special. You can't mess that up. And so that's why people talk about Chase Young so much. I think most people agree with me, and I just yelled at a straw man, but that's probably why they tell us to never read the comments, huh?
I'm about to say, you definitely got a little riled up.
I just fell for my own bit. Good job. Good job, Craig. All right, we're going to keep going. Never read the comments here on the Hoffman Show. We did the roster projection on Monday. That's certainly gotten a few comments. Alex McCloskey, 4914, says, this shows keeping two quarterbacks over three would make a huge difference. Like you said, Craig, if we're down to our third quarterback this season, it's over anyways. I get that Fromm has been good in practice against our third, fourth string secondary, who the Browns lit up, but Fromm hasn't shown anything at NFL games or the joint practice yesterday. For now, I'd only keep Howell Brissett active and have Fromm on the practice squad. So I think here's where I'm at on Fromm in the third quarterback, because I think this is an interesting point. I had Fromm on the roster when we did the projection. You're going to have players who are inactive. There is only one inactive player who has the chance to play in a game, and that is your third quarterback, and that is a new rule this year. In that sense, it makes sense to have a third quarterback, because if you're going to have guys that are inactive anyway, week in and week out, you might as well have the one of them that could play in case of emergency. However, if it comes down to keeping Jake Fromm as that third quarterback or cutting a guy that you don't think you can get through to the practice squad, I would cut Fromm, keep him on the practice squad, and if you all of a sudden need to bring him up at some point, or someone else gets hurt and there's an extra roster spot, whatever, you can always bring him up. But I don't think there's going to be a mass clamoring for Jake Fromm on another active roster. So if you get to a point, which, by the way, I think Alex's point here is good, that we had to make some tough cuts, that extra roster spot could be super valuable. I would consider, even though someone might be, it's an extra inactive guy on game day, I would consider just the 2 quarterbacks. And I think it's something that probably a lot of teams will differentiate on this year as everyone adjusts to this new third quarterback rule, where you can have a designated third guy on game day that if your first 2 quarterbacks come down, is basically an extra active player. Last couple of comments here. By the way, also on Fromm. Why do we have Fromm? He's pretty bad. Hopefully we can find a third quarterback when cuts are made. Whose third quarterback is good? Anybody? Anthony, any team out there that you think's got 3 good quarterbacks?
The 49ers.
Do they?
I mean,
they have the 3 best in the league.
The jury's still out on Trey Lance.
Yeah.
But, I mean, Sam Darnold looked okay. Brock Purdy, all right.
Hilariously, they've got 2, top 10 guys. Where was Darnold picked? Was he 1-1?
I think so.
So you got a top over, or was he?
He was in the top 3.
Yeah, no, because he was the Baker Mayfield year. So I believe he was second.
He was 2 or 3. One.
He was a top 10 pick.
Yeah.
You got a top 10 pick, another top 3 pick in Lance, and then you got the last pick in the draft, and that guy's going to be the starter. So outside of the 49ers, any team you could even name all 3 of their quarterbacks? Besides the Ravens, because we practiced against them the last 2 days.
Dang. No, I wish I could.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
You stumped me.
No one's third quarterback is good except for maybe the 49ers. So don't freak out about that. A lot of commentary as well on the Dax Milne. They keep Milne to start the season, and then Kaz Allen will take his spot once the coaches can trust him by week 3. I think something like that could be in play. I picked that comment out to highlight this, and this will be my last point, and never read the comments. Every single year, and now I'm doing a finger wag. Every single year, there is a guy that every fan base swears will not make it to the practice squad. And every year, that guy makes it to the practice squad because every other team also has a guy at that position. And by the way, if that guy does get scooped up, there's another guy that's just as good that's probably right behind him. So while everyone will say, oh, you got to keep Kaz Allen, there's no way he gets to the practice squad, that's not true. And if you miss out on Kaz Allen, it is not going to be the difference in your team making the playoffs or not, or anything significant. I think there is an interesting Kaz Allen, Dax Milne discussion to be had. And in fact, that is one of the things I would like to talk about in our training camp pick 6, because Kaz Allen did have some interesting reps today. So training camp pick 6 at 6 is next. That was Never Read the Comments. As always, leave your comments at Craig Hoffman, at the Team 980, at 1067 The Fan, and we'll respond to them here on the radio next Wednesday at 5:30. Training camp pick 6 at 6. Next, it's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and always live on the free Odyssey app. Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Our final hour on this Wednesday. Tomorrow, an off day for the Commander, so there's no telling what we'll do at 6 o'clock. You should probably just tune in and find out. And then Friday, obviously, Clinton Yates will be on the show, as he is each and every Friday. We'll see what else we conjure up on one of the final practices. We just got the media schedule for the Commanders. We'll get to our pick six in 30 seconds. Media schedule, which also reminded us about the fan schedule. If you want to go see Commanders practice, Saturday is your last chance. So that is their final practice before the Ravens. And then we got a couple more training camp practices next week, Wednesday, Thursday, before the Commanders face Cincinnati on Saturday. So quick turnaround Monday, Saturday, from Monday night game to Saturday preseason game. And then it's regular season mode. We, as media, don't get to watch the full practices anymore. So enjoying them while we can. We'll get to as many as we can. But Friday, Saturday, the next practice days for the Ole Mandos. As for right now, though, it is time to look at the biggest stories of the day. It's our training camp Pick 6 at 6, where we pick the 6 biggest storylines of the day from Commanders camp. And we get started with how things went overall for the 2 days of joint practices. And, well, they went well, which is good. But our number one story is that despite them going well for Sam Howell, Ron Rivera is not ready to name him the QB1 regular season starter yet. To give some background on what you're about to hear, Ron was very complimentary of Sam, and in a way that I would say he normally isn't. Normally he's trying to weave Jacoby in there and kind of all this stuff. And so I'm listening to Ron answer the questions, and I'm like, wait a second. Is he trying to tell us something? So I asked, are you ready with, around the league, quarterbacks being named as regular season starters like Anthony Richardson was in Indianapolis? Are you ready to name Sam Howell as your starting quarterback for week 1?
Well, again, I said I got to sit down with both Eric and Sam, Eric and Davita, and really evaluate it and make sure he's doing the things that we need him to do. And yesterday he had a really good day. We're really pleased with it after having watched the tape. And we'll see how it is after we get a chance to watch this tape together. We're traveling today, so we'll sit down tomorrow and go through it and talk about Sam and really just evaluate that and evaluate Jacoby as well. I mean, Jacoby did some really good things too, so we feel really comfortable about the quarterback room right now.
I think he's being honest there that he feels very comfortable about the quarterback room overall. I don't think that he doesn't know where this is headed. But he does need to sit down with Eric and Davita, because telling the press that, hey, yeah, that's our guy, when you haven't actually had that conversation with your offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach isn't how you lead a football team. Isn't how you lead an organization. So some people are probably, mad at that, and that's fine. I guess this is what I've expected all along. I expected them to get through the Baltimore joint practices, and they're not through it from their evaluation standpoint until they watch the tape, get through that, and then as long as Sam has proven that he's worthy of being the guy and compared to what Jacoby's done, which he has, they'll name him the starter. So I kind of expect Friday for them to name him the starter. Might wait till after the Baltimore game, but I would be surprised. I think Friday, Ron will open up his press conference by saying, all right, before we get started, I just want to let you guys know Sam Howell will be our starter for week 1 of the regular season. Sam's done a great job. Blah, 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 blah. As for how Sam thought of his performance these couple of days against the Ravens, he's tried to simplify things and talked about that after practice today.
Yeah, I think the main thing is I'm just more confident in the offense, and I'm way more comfortable out there calling the plays and knowing what we're trying to accomplish with the play that we're calling. And I feel like I'm in a really good place mentally with what Evie's trying to do, and we're on the same page. And it's just a lot fun. It's a lot more fun going out there now, and I'm kind of just playing instinctive at this point. I'm going back to, how I'm just out there playing football at this point. There's not really much thinking to go on, just because I'm very comfortable with the offense.
Quarterback is a thinking position, but thinking fast and overthinking are very different. Like, you can't be like, oh, the linebacker is here, so that means the route is there, and I've got to throw. It's got to be, oh, that guy's there, bang, ball. And it's got to be that quick. Otherwise, you're dead. And I think you see some parts of this offense there's not necessarily overthinking, but there's not thinking fast enough, and that is when he gets sped up. I think the one area where I still have big concerns about Howell based off these couple of days and based off the preseason is when he's facing pressure. It's a couple of reasons. One, he just doesn't have the file yet. He does not have the Tom Brady at the end of his career. I've seen every blitz. There is nothing you can throw at me that I haven't seen 10 times before, if not 20, 30, 40, 50 times before, and I know exactly where to go with the ball. He does not have that. His height has been an issue in some capacity against pressure. When blitzes come in, and all of a sudden, he's got to throw over a blitzing DB or a defensive end that's been cut free, and that is a 6-foot-tall, 40-inch vertical jumping DB or a 6'4" defensive end. He's had a couple of balls tipped, including the one in the game against the Browns. It's something he's going to have to figure out. Where is the angle? How do I pump fake? How do I buy myself an extra second? How do I get the ball out that half second quicker so it gets over the guy's fingertips? It is something he will likely figure out. I really don't have a lot of doubts in Sam Howell because I just love his mental makeup and his approach to everything so much. But those realistically are problems to be solved. But down in, down out in this offense, he's done a damn good job. I think the drop back stuff has been pretty good. Inconsistent, but good. I think the screen game is something that's still a work in progress for areas that are not Sam. I think that the quick game has gotten better and better as camp has gone on. And I think the biggest, most exciting thing about him is he has these incredibly high ceiling, make something out of nothing plays. And your big shot plays are ones that he can execute with relative ease because he has a huge arm and great touch and great feel on the deep ball. So I'm excited to see what kind of big plays he can get in the rhythm of the offense and then which ones he can manufacture off schedule where he has shown some real ability in training camp. The one thing that was a little bit concerning from Sam today is, sir, I know you haven't been named the starter, but when you're QB1, you can't get in the middle of a fracas. And now Sam was at the start of the fracas that happened on the offensive field today where someone hit him in the face mask and, someone else was like, that's not cool. I think it was the Commanders' O-line, but it might have been Gibson, whoever it was that came to Sam's defense. But if you're the quarterback, you just got to walk away. And Sam was trying to pull guys out. And the leadership there is great. But, buddy, you can't get hurt. Get out of those big guys meleeing with each other. I asked Sam to close out his press conference today, like, okay, that aside, what's your role as a leader when things start to escalate on the field?
Yeah, I thought it was a good 2 days of work. I'm very pleased with our performance offensively. I thought.
Sorry, that's not the right bite, and I copied and pasted the wrong one. Do we have the literal last, or it should have been Sam 05 on his role when things boil over in practice?
Yeah, obviously it's tough to kind of control everybody when the emotions are so high and everyone's in a fight. But just when we're in the huddle, man, just trying to get the guys to refocus and settle down. Obviously tempers are going to get a little high out here, and you want it to be competitive. It's a competitive sport, and you want guys to truly care about it and care about their teammates and stand up for their teammates. So I think that stuff's all good, but it's just all about my job is to get those guys to settle down and just focus on what's really important, and that's their job.
He's a wise young man, that's Sam Howell. Very, 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 very impressive with how he approached that and how he handled it. And ultimately, like, Ron yelled at everybody, but they did execute the rest of practice without any more issues after the big brawl on the offensive field today. As for that physicality, number 2 in our training camp, pick 6 at 6, moving beyond Sam Howell. It actually started very early. It started in the one-on-one drills, both the places that it eventually boiled over. The running back linebacker drills were intense. It was very, very clear after Antonio Gibson, ran hard yesterday and Brian Robinson ran hard yesterday that the Ravens linebackers wanted to give a little bit back. And so this was their chance in a pass protection drill, one-on-one, to really thud up and get some contact and go what is full contact in a blocking perspective. There's no tackling there, so there's no calling it off. Only the whistle can save you. And that got heated a couple of times, and some extra shoving and things after the play. Same is true in the one-on-one drills, offensive offensive defensive line, Commanders offensive line, Ravens defensive line, things started very, very quickly to get scrappy and eventually boiled over into a nice little fisticuffs, some guys getting thrown down, punches thrown, all that kind of stuff. And eventually Ron just had to bring everybody together and say enough. And at the end of practice, he reiterated that. Spent a long time talking to the team after practice, and I opened the press conference asking Rivera what he told that entire team group.
Well, biggest thing I told him is, you don't have to get a little bit out of control to be successful and have a good work week. Thought they did some really good things today. Really pleased with a lot of the positives, a lot of the pluses. But, we didn't need the fighting. And that was one of my biggest messages. Guys, you got to go out there and play football. You got to perform, do your job, do what you're supposed to. All that other stuff's not important. It doesn't help us win football games. Just wanted to make sure they understand it. I think part of our thing is just understanding how to be a mature football team. And I think that's important. We've shown some good growth, some good maturity, but this was a good test to just understand what it takes to be really good.
As for the actual football within those sessions outside of the fighting, Chris Rodriguez was awesome in pass pro today in those one-on-one drills. His physicality shows up, obviously, when he's got the ball, but that's an important role in this team that they don't really have. They've always had that guy, whether it was Chris Thompson back in the day, J.D. McKissick, where you think of, third down back, he'll get out in space and be a good receiving threat. But part of being a third down back is also bowing up in pass protection. And Chris Rodriguez is someone who in third and long situations might find himself on the field surely out of a pass protection, and he'll get some draws and stuff, and fans will boo because that's what happens when you draw on third and long. And maybe he can run through some arm tackles and pick up yardage and change field position for field goal or keep you in field goal range or, whatever it may be, or pick up a first down. But largely he's going to be in there because they're going to try to throw it down the field, and he's a guy that if he's got the mental side of pass pro down, physically can do some damage. Alex Arma also, as a fullback, might wind up on the field in some of those situations because he is really impressive in pass protection. Gibson, a bit of a mixed bag on that front. Brian Robinson went against Roquan Smith. That did not particularly go well for Robinson. Roquan's obviously amazing. But Gibson, bit of a mixed bag, but they then got into their one-on-ones, running backs, tight ends versus the linebackers in pass coverage, not pass protection. And Gibson showed his value there. He gets out there, routes up a guy, gets open, and obviously when the ball's in his hands, super, super dangerous. But the physicality started early in those one-on-ones, and while there was some of it that boiled over, some was just really impressive performances. Roquan Smith on the Ravens side, Chris Rodriguez, the two highlights for me, with Rodriguez being on the Commander side of things. Injury updates for the day. Number 3 in our training camp, pick 6 at 6. The left side of the Commanders' offensive line did not finish practice. Charles Leno planned, Sadiq Charles not, according to Ron Rivera.
We shut Sadiq down during practice. He was feeling a little bit, so we just kind of set it down to be careful.
Okay. And how about Charles? Did you just rest him at the end? Or?
Yeah, we rested Charles at the end. That was done consciously to get him off the field.
As far as other players injury-wise, great to see Benjamin St. Juste back. He had a pretty good day, and obviously being out there is a good day for him. Logan Thomas continued to work on the side field. I would imagine next Wednesday when they return after the Baltimore game, he is able to get back at least in individual drills, if not team drills, and they try to ramp him up. I doubt he'll play in that final preseason game, but it'd be nice to at least get him some individual work with the team. And then Big Phil still dealing with that calf. Chase Young still dealing with the stinger, out today. Missed opportunities for those young guys to get valuable reps against the Ravens starting offensive line. Guys who did get reps against the Ravens starting offensive line. D-line had an interesting day. First of all, happy birthday to assistant defensive line coach Ryan Kerrigan, who was out there doing his thing on his birthday. Happy birthday, RK. I know some of the Commanders tweeted out some of his highlights earlier. But he was not alone. Not only Jeff Scanina, the coach, but Warren Sapp was back out there today in a Commander's bucket hat, big old gold chain. But he was helping out with the D-line today, which added a nice little bit of extra juice to those drills. In the individual drills, it was pretty funny. They were doing kind of a footwork bag drill. There's 3 big bags on the ground. You have to chop your feet, get over them. And Daron Payne didn't exactly crush it, apparently, during his rep. I mean, looked good to me, very athletic. Large man, moves quickly. Excellent stuff. But he did not nail it in the way that the coaches wanted. And he, laughing, yelled back to Sapp. He goes, "I don't do drills, man. I play football," which was a pretty funny line from Daron Payne. I also thought it was interesting for all of the fisticuffs that happened between the Ravens D-line and the Commanders offensive line over the 2 days. I don't think there was a single fight with the Commanders defensive line and the Ravens offensive line, which I think just shows the maturity of that group. For as much as they bark, as intense as they are and as good as they are and as much butt as they kick, they know where the line is. And I don't think it boiled over from anything I saw with that group. Now, what you are seeing from that group is a very interesting, but I would say positive conundrum starting to emerge. They have too many good players. And a guy who is causing some of those quote-unquote problems is the 7th-round pick, Andre Jones, who got reps with the ones today opposite of Montez Sweat. Here's Rivera afterwards when asked about Jones.
He's a dynamic young man. He's got some explosion off the edge. He's got a lot to learn in terms of technique and the scheme itself, but his talent, his abilities did show. So, he's a guy that's we got to pay a little extra attention to this week.
Spoiler alert, when we do the roster projection next week, he's going to be on it. No question is he going to be on the roster to me at this point, as long as he stays healthy. He has pass rush juice, which they need some extra of. It's always good to have. But he's also legitimately fast, straight line speed fast, which is very valuable on special teams. So I think he's gonna make the team, and that kind of makes you wonder, okay, well, he's gonna make the team. Is he just gonna be inactive? What are you gonna do with him? No, he's not gonna be inactive because he's gonna play teams. How do you get him on the field? I think we're gonna see a lot of Cinco this year. And I think we're going to see a decent amount, especially on third down, of James Smith-Williams and F.A. Obata inside. And I don't know who you take off the field necessarily of Payne and Allen. That's the problem, is if you say, we want to get one of those guys at a 3 technique, well, Duron's typically playing the 1 anyway, but you can line it up so you got 2-3 techniques and some wider ends. But, you got to take one of those guys off to get another defensive tackle in. But in pass rush situations, who would you rather have? John Ridgeway, Phil Mathis, if Allen or Payne is not available, or James Smith-Williams or F.A. Obata? Both have worked extensively at the 3 technique, at defensive tackle, the last couple of days. We started to see it in Ashburn, but James Smith-Williams has worked a ton in Baltimore on the inside. He's also had some really nice reps on the outside for whatever it's worth, including a sack or 2, if I'm remembering correctly. But it is very, very clear they are trying to find ways to get more pass rushers on the field. And that is a way that they are doing it, is moving those 2 guys, Obata and Smith-Williams, inside more. But don't forget, Chase Young had started to do some of that in one-on-ones and individual drills. So I'm very curious when Young gets back. Could you imagine, we talk about what happens when Young lines up opposite Sweat, Anthony. What happens if Young lines up next to Sweat?
I would be scared if I'm that offensive line.
Yeah, that's a lot of speed, power, height, physicality, everything to worry about.
You don't have help.
No, and especially they do it in Cinco.
Good gracious.
You could have Sweat on one side, Andre Jones on the other, with Payne, Allen, Payne at the nose, Allen, and then Chase. What?
It's a lot of brute strength right there.
A lot of speed. It's a lot of athleticism. Good
everything.
Luck with that. That is number 5, the defensive line on our training camp. Pick 6. That's number 4. Number 5, I'll blow through these last 2 pretty quick as we're running short on time. The 6 biggest storylines every day at 6 o'clock. I'm calling this number 5 the Kaz Allen conundrum. What do you do when a down roster guy catches a wide open ball? Or drops, I should say, a wide open ball? Because to get wide open, it means you have to be a good route runner. And in order to drop it, you got to drop it. So some positives and negatives today with Allen. He did catch a touchdown later in that same, later in practice, 11-on-11 period. But we were having a discussion on the sideline. I think Dax Milne only had 6 catches all of last year. And so it's like, okay, how much are you really missing if he's not out there? But the problem, I think, is that he can more reliably, in terms of assignment discipline, play all 3 positions. So if someone gets hurt in the middle of a game and you need Dax Milne to go out there, he's not going to give you spectacular production, but he's not going to mess up your offense. He's not going to run the wrong route, run a DB into another guy, and cause the interception that loses you the game. He's going to be assignment sound, and that's really valuable. He also is probably a better blocker, which your down roster receivers you often put in to save your starters from having to run block. You let those be the reps that they get to rest on. So De'Ami Brown's a guy that's been great at that. Cam Sims in the past, obviously no longer here, but like those are the kinds of things that you're looking at. So it's not about who can catch the ball and be more dynamic. There's so much more to that last receiver spot. But if you do have a guy who can be dynamic, like weapons are weapons, and Kaz Allen is a weapon. So I have no idea what they're going to do with him. And obviously you have the punt return game where Dax is reliable to get you nothing, but he'll catch the football. And Allen is a little bit more of a wild card in ways that I think are mostly good. Like I don't think he's had a ton of fumble issues or muffin whatever. His decision making, I as far as I know, is good. But I think I would lean Allen. I think most NFL coaches would lean Milne. It's just a really tough call, 2 very different players. But today you saw it on display as Allen like shakes the dude, gets wide open, and drops the ball, and you're just like, but the catching, the receiving in the wide receiver. Last but not least, I had a chance to follow up with Ron post press conference today on Cameron Cheeseman. I talked about this yesterday. I saw that Burgundy Blog picked it up, and so it kind of became a thing today. Luckily, he picked it up right before I asked Ron about this, so was able to quickly provide more context. But I asked Ron, like, are you concerned about Cheeseman snapping? And he's like, no, we're not. And I was like, I know he's working on a new technique thing, so that's what I expected. But like, what's the deadline where you go, all right, hey, these snaps are low, we got to get them up, and if not, then you have to actually start being concerned. And he said the game. So I think if there's more bad snaps in the game from Cheeseman on Monday, you're going to see tryouts on Tuesday or Wednesday when they get back to Ashburn and have the chance to do that for long snappers to come in and compete up until the regular season. It's a work in progress. I don't know why he's trying a new technique. It's something that perhaps I can ask him about at some point. I've apparently assigned myself the long snapper beat. But ultimately, like, as I said yesterday, nothing I said yesterday changes. It's just adding more context, right? The level he's producing at right now is not good enough. The level he's producing at right now is also not the level you would expect him to be if he continues to work on the thing and get better at it. Like, you have to let guys work through stuff. You have to let guys work through technique. That's Andrew Wiley at right tackle, that, learning a new pass set. That is Cameron Cheeseman as a long snapper. It's, a route running technique from Terry. It's whoever. It's John Allen, Deron Payne. Some guys learn faster than others. But by the same token, the calendar waits for no one. The calendar waits for no one. And you cannot go into a regular season with a long snapper who is unreliable, just like you can't go into a regular season without a plan for a right tackle who is having issues, and on down the list. So hopefully Cameron Cheeseman is getting near the end of this experiment, and it is something he can implement better on a more consistent basis. He was good from every snap that I saw today. They didn't work field goal, they worked punt, but he was consistently on target. So hopefully he is getting to the end of his issues and working through and perfecting whatever new technique it is, so that we're not talking about the long snapper at any point during the regular season, because it never is something that is talked about when things are going well. That is our training camp. Pick 6 at 6. 6 things from every single day that the Commanders practice at training camp. Joint practice edition in the books. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Little bit of fun next here to wrap up the show. Real things still to come before the end as well. the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Anthony, I don't know why. I feel like the last 2 days, these practices, like, my throat is trash. I don't feel like we haven't had fewer guests on the show. I don't know why. I've been drinking water, but, like, my throat do I sound all right?
You sound straight to me.
Okay. I don't know what's going on. My throat feels stressed.
Are you sleeping?
Sleeping great.
Are you drinking lots of water? Because you are in the sun.
I thought so, but apparently not. I've had like liquid IVs and salt supplements. Like I've been doing all the stuff that I would do if I was like running hydration wise, and I haven't even worked out in 2 days.
Oh man, that might be it.
I don't think that affects your throat. It affects my everything else. Like
Yeah.
I'm like antsy as hell, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm staring in the home studio at the Peloton right in front of me. Like, do I hop on after?
You just might have to. Maybe like 5-10 minutes. Quick pump.
I don't know. I will do some jumping. I got to make dinner. Make that into a sport. Just run around the kitchen like a crazy person.
I mean, considering you don't necessarily have to commute, I think hopping on the Peloton to account for the time that you would commute is good.
Maybe, but I don't know. I think I'm probably just gonna make dinner because I also don't want to have to shower. I showered. No joke. This is something I've never done before. Showered 10 minutes before the show.
Oh, nice.
But I was like, you ever have that feeling you just got to get something off you?
Yeah. Like, especially your hands. Yeah.
Yeah. No, this was like my whole body. I was like, I got to get training camp off me.
Yeah.
That has been a tough thing with the schedule. Like, there's a couple days that it just went straight from camp. Like, when we were in Ashburn, straight from camp to the studio.
Mm.
And I was like, I would definitely prefer to shower right now. Good thing this is a one-dimensional radio show. No sense, just vibes, just voices and vibes. You how are you feeling, by the way? You were stressed to start the show, bro.
I was stressed because usually I like to get into the studio around like 2:30 and like really do all of my show prep. And I had no audio, I had no transcripts, I had nothing. And I was looking for, the audio from Ron and everybody early, and I didn't get like any audio until like 3:15. And
yeah,
then
there was apparently some
audio
issues
at like 3:30, and I'm like,
yeah.
bruh. So like I was stressed, coming into the show.
If you had let me know earlier that we had no audio, I could have gotten you the backup audio faster.
I mean, I didn't know. I mean, I didn't check like the streams because usually Ron is up there. Like I get notifications like early in the day, like these people are talking. So I'm like, all right, I'll see it later when I get to the station. I get to the station, nothing's there except Kendall and 2 minutes of Sam. So yeah.
I just gotta say, I think you did a great job. You were stressing me out a little bit because you were stressed.
Yeah.
But other than that, I think we did a good job.
Yes, sir.
People listening now that haven't been listening for 2 hours and 37 minutes, go back and listen to the start of the show. See if you could tell whether Anthony was stressed, whether I was stressed. But we did it. We put on yet another radio show. What did we say we were going to talk about here? Oh,
Verizon.
In part, we're going to talk about what we're not going to talk about. You want to know something that's really great? There was a congressperson, an important one, who recommended that Daniel Snyder be referred to the Department of Justice for a potential criminal probe today. And we're just going to kind of mention it in passing because not our problem anymore. For details, just to flesh out the story, Jamie Raskin, who is one of the members of Congress from Maryland, so obviously makes sense that it's a local D.C. person, but also he's a very high-ranking person. In fact, he's actually the ranking member on the House Oversight Committee. Ranking member means you are the highest person in the minority party, with Republicans having control of the House right now, Raskin, a Democrat, the ranking member. And it is based off the NFL's Mary Jo White report, which concluded that Snyder lied about certain things in an attempt to cover up certain, whether it's the financial stuff, certain misbehavior. And Raskin's like, well, he told us the same thing he told them. So if he lied to Mary Jo White, that means he lied to us, and we can't have people lying to Congress, which seems like a pretty good point to me. But Snyder, I doubt this will ultimately culminate in anything as what's it called? Not the ranking member, the person in charge of the party, James Comer, or in charge of the committee, James Comer, Republican from Oklahoma. He was one of the ones leading the charge of like, hey, if we were in charge of this committee, there would have never been a congressional investigation in the first place. So the chances that he's then going to flip around and be like, actually, well, since we did it and he lied, we're going to send to DOJ, Department of Justice, for a criminal probe. It seems like Snyder is going to get away with lying to Congress, which is, a crime, a federal crime. But he's obviously got a lot of other issues that are still being worked out. Still waiting on the latest on the Gruden lawsuits and yada, yada, yada. Meanwhile, in Commanders land, they got a big old money sponsor today that they absolutely would not have gotten if Dan was still owning the team. And again, this stuff matters. But this was sold by the Commanders as the first, and correctly, as the first major sponsorship and first sponsorship period signed of the Josh Harris era. Verizon is the sponsor. They're doing a deal, it looks like, from what I read with the press release, with basically all NFL teams, and there's going to be enhanced communications at FedEx Field. Some of that is fan-facing. So if you've been to FedEx and your cell service has been crappy because there's a million people in there, it's something that all stadiums have to fight. Verizon's going to work to enhance that. I would imagine they would enhance the fan Wi-Fi, but they're also going to work on the coach-to-coach communication systems. So the headsets and all that kind of stuff will be facilitated by, I guess, Verizon engineers, and whatever that's worth. But I thought it was pretty interesting / honestly funny, Anthony, at this point, that the two competing stories today that kind of came out on non-football at the same time were Congressperson recommends Dan Snyder goes to jail. First new major business deal with one of the biggest companies in America for Josh Harris.
It was about time, though. I mean, it is a little ironic or just coincidental, but I'm just glad that dude Dan's not here, man.
Not our problem.
Not our problem anymore. We don't have to, wake up and, think about this guy anymore, just like Brooke Pryor alluded to.
Yeah.
We have those things behind us nowadays, and
we can look at stories about Dan Snyder being referred to the Department of Justice for criminal probes, and instead of going, oh, no, we have to talk about this, book someone from the Washington Post, we just go, whatever.
Yeah.
We can even talk about it here, and I don't even think, I'm sure someone's mad because someone's always listening mad, but most people are probably like, oh, yeah, thanks for the update.
Yeah.
That's the update. One owner getting business done, the other owner somewhere overseas on his yacht, hoping that the Republican leader of the committee, the committee chairperson, there we go. I could pass a civics class. The committee chairperson doesn't refer them to the Department of Justice for lying to Congress. All right, that's the non-football news for the day. Obviously, if you want any of the football stuff, we did it for 2.5 hours straight. Got great perspective from Mitch Tischler, from one of our Ravens insiders in the Odyssey family. So that was earlier in the show. All that'll be up on the YouTube page on demand in just a little bit at Craig Hoffman. So make sure you are subscribed there. The YouTube page, by the way, talking about business being booming. Yo, businesses. We're doing some things over there. So subscribe if you haven't. I know it's hard to listen to every hour of the show every day, but we try to put the highlights up. It makes it easy to catch up on YouTube. Obviously, if you want the audio format, you can get that. Anthony works hard, does a great job putting together the podcast every day. So just subscribe to the Hoffman Show feed wherever you get your podcasts. When we get back, Real Things Real People Said into real microphones, but first a quick look at what's trending. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Tomorrow morning, I think we're recording like 7:30 in the morning, maybe 8. But Logan and I will record a fresh edition of Take Command. I know he is right now watching all the tape back from practice. So really, really looking forward to diving into all of the practice stuff with Logan tomorrow morning. If you are not subscribed to Take Command, Anthony, why? Like, what's a good reason not to be subscribed to Take Command?
There is no reason.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. Like, if you're a Commanders fan and you're not listening to our podcast, what are you doing? Question all your life's choices. Maybe not all of them, but like at least the football adjacent ones.
Gracious, all life's choices.
There's a couple people that are like, "Damn, am I having an existential crisis right now?"
No,
we don't. I don't think we need to question all of them, but you should question your listening habits. If you like this show, you're gonna love Take Command. Me and Paulson, 45 minutes, a couple times a week, talking ball. So we'll have a fresh episode out as soon. Like, I'm the one editing it tomorrow. Our new producer is being imported and onboarded right now. As our guy Nick went and got married and got a new job. So I can promise you, as the one editing and producing it tomorrow, throwback to the OG days of this podcast when I was the actual producer and host before I got this radio show. But your boys putting the producing hat on. And Anthony, you can attest, I work quickly.
Yes, you do. Very, very quickly.
When it comes to audio and video editing, I get things done.
Yeah, he does.
So if we get done, I'll say this. If we start it, we're probably going to go long on this podcast. Our plan is to probably go for closer to an hour instead of 45 minutes because there's so much to talk about. If we get done by 9 o'clock, the audio will be up by 9:30 at the very latest. And there's, I would say, a pretty good chance that the video is up by 10. So subscribe to, for the full episode of Take Command on video. We put that on 106.7 The Fans page. Clips on my page at Craig Hoffman. And then the audio's in your favorite podcast platform. Just search Take Command. I'll say this. We got a meeting at 11:30 tomorrow, a Take Command meeting. You don't have to be there, Anthony. Don't worry. Anthony's eyebrows went, what? No, you and I do not have a meeting. We have a Take Command meeting tomorrow at 11:30. I want to be able to take a little break between the time I'm done editing and that meeting. And I think I can do that. I have faith in me. Have a little faith in me. That's a song. Not sung like that, but it's a song. That was a real thing. A real person said it into a real microphone. It was very unfortunate, and I apologize. But, it is what it is. Here's other things real people said into real microphones.
Real things.
We're not going to be set this year.
Real people.
5 and 11, not very good.
Said into real microphones.
You know, the culture is actually damn good.
Anthony, I'm going to need you to give me the hand signals again in a second. I just realized that I had an error on the graphical side of things, and I was kind of losing my mind there for a second. I'll get the Real Things graphic up in a second. What time do we need to be out of this radio show? You can just tell me. 55:30. Okay.
No, 55:13.
Oh, 13. I would have been 17 seconds over. That would have caused you all kinds of problems. Here's what we can say. Nothing. We can let someone else say something because that's the point of this segment. Patrick Mahomes was asked. We've been sitting on this one for a couple days. Patrick Mahomes was asked, I believe this was over the weekend, about the Ron Rivera, Eric Bieniemy kind of kerfuffle. I know that's way old news right now, but here's the MVP of the league, Super Bowl champion, talking about what Eric Bieniemy, of course, the now Commanders offensive coordinator, meant to him.
Would you tell those players in Washington were a little maybe shocked by EB's demeanor, coaching style?
Yeah, I think I saw EB say it. I mean, perfect. I mean, EB is going to be harsh on you. He's gonna really try to get the best out of you every single day. He's not going to he's going to hold you accountable whenever you don't even want to hold yourself accountable. And it made me a better player. And I think what he said, that was the biggest thing, is he's your number one supporter, though. He will go to war with you just like any other guy on your team. And you got to know that. And you got to know when he's talking to you on the football field that he's trying to get the best out of you. He's not trying to put you down. He's trying to push you to be even better than you think you can be. And so that's something that I think that they'll understand when they go out there and they start winning football games, is there's a reason to why he's coaching you the way that he's coaching you, and that he loves you. I mean, he loves every guy that he coaches, and you see that with the guys that have come out and said stuff about him, the Jamal Charles, Adrian Peterson, Tyreek. I mean, they understand that he loves you, and he's going to try to get the best out of you every single day.
I love it. And I think that's already started to happen. Like, that was the weird thing about that story, was that, like, the breakthroughs that come after the uncomfortable stuff had already started happening. And to me, it was just kind of weird that a lot of folks jumped on that without acknowledging that the growth and the things they were criticizing the players for being soft or not getting it, like, they were already beyond that. And obviously Mahomes gets that. Guys like going back to when EB was a running backs coach in Minnesota, Adrian Peterson understood that. It is difficult at first to adjust to being pushed to your limits. That's why they're called your limits. But ultimately, these guys have figured out that it's worth it. And you see it in these practices where they go toe-to-toe with the Ravens for 2 days. And I think you walk away going, like, this is a team that's going to compete week in, week out this season. And it's because of the standard that Eric Bieniemy has set. How long is this Bobby Marks thing?
9 seconds.
Okay, play it. Ready, set, go.
My computer froze.
Oh. I mean, I know I did you a little dirty there, but I had faith in you, Anthony, that you were going to be able to get it done. Unfortunately, the technology betrayed you. Bobby Marks said that the winner of the play-in tournament should get an automatic berth into the playoffs. That is so incredibly stupid. That's my take. All right, we'll see you tomorrow on the Hoffman Show on the Team 980 and always live on the free Odyssey app.
The Hoffman Show.